Hey everybody, I'm Kevin. Now, one of the most common questions I would get working at retail garden centers over the years is, what do you have that blooms all season long? Now, there's a lot of perennials that bloom a long time or have long bloom periods, but mostly what we'd have to do is put them into categories, whether they be early bloomers, mid bloomers, or late blooming into the season. And that's what I've done today. I've put together a collection of photos that breaks that down into those early, mid, and late categories. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the photos. All right, let's get started with the pasque flower. This is one of the first to emerge in the spring, so a very early bloomer. This is a fun one to watch as it comes out of the ground, as it progresses. Look at those purplish red flowers, hardy to zone 4 and 8. This is going to love sun. Also does pretty well in the rock garden areas. You know, look at this as an added bonus. Look at those plumes, those little spherical seed heads. Now that's pretty cool. That lasts a long way into the season. And here we've got the bleeding heart. Yeah, this is, I consider, more of an old-fashioned plant. You can find this in a lot of the older communities, but just a durable, long-lasting plant. Now, this is one that's great for just a part shade type area. Very hardy, down to zone 3. There's also some of the fern leaf type leaf varieties available, as well as this yellow, which is very, very a nice little contrast in the landscape, that yellow bleeding heart. And the tulip, yeah, this is technically a perennial, was planted by a bulb type form, and I think this has kind of fallen out of favor over the years, but I'm starting to see them come back. The tulips, you know, they've got so many different colors to choose from, and I think one of the reasons you've seen a lot of replanting on tulip bulbs is due to all these new colors. The longevity of those bulbs has maybe been breeded out of it, but some of the older fashioned tulips, they still come up year to year. You really don't have to dig them up, divide them. I think one of the bigger downsides might be that the rabbits love that foliage. So if you've got rabbits, they're probably going to chew down some of those leaves. And now we're getting into more of the mid-season, the Salvia, one of the most popular. This is a tough plant. It'll grow in a lot of different areas, tolerate drought, but mostly it's got the blue to violet varieties. It's a mid-season bloomer that's hardy to that zone 4, best in full sun. This one can self-seed just a little bit, so you got to be a little bit careful there. This one will really draw in the bumblebees. And I tend to companion plant this with my tomatoes, because tomatoes, the bumblebees, they work together for good pollination. So the salvia, if you rub up against it, it's got that sage smell for sure. There's also white varieties. I also want to mention that this one looks tough after it's done blooming. So this year I experimented, I think mid-July. I went in ahead and I pruned back those old flowers, and boy, it came back beautifully. This is a flower in September, where I thought this looked just absolutely fantastic. So the bloom wasn't quite as heavy in September, but it was a nice way to avoid that ugliness that you're going to get with some perennials after they're done blooming. And here we're looking at Sarah Burnt Heart Peony, just a beautiful double pink peony. Now the peonies I consider to be more old-fashioned. They're not for everybody. They can get large, they can droop down. You may have to do supports on them if you don't like that droopy effect, but they're a hardy, tough plant. I mean, there's peonies that have lasted decades without digging up and dividing those tubers. I've even heard stories of centuries where those peonies continue to bloom. Now there's so many different types. There's single, Japanese, semi-double, double, bomb. So there's a lot of different peonies to choose from, a lot of different colors. The most popular are the pinks, the reds, and the whites. Here we've got Lorraine Sunshine Heliopsis, sometimes also called oxeye daisy, false sunflower, but this is a really nice plant with a long bloom. Look at that variegated foliage. That's one of the things that stands out. It's got a really, really long bloom period. I bet upwards of between 4, maybe and up to 6 weeks. This is going to tolerate the dry areas, full sun, very hardy down to zone 3. But take a look at the one right behind it. Now this will self-seed, and you can see it's come up not true to type. So we've got a Heliopsis there, but we've just got no variegation on that foliage. So I kind of like how they blend together, but this is just a wonderful perennial for mid-season blooms. We've got Walker's Low Catmint. Now this is not catnip, it's catmint. It's in the mint family. Now this is a 2 to 3 foot perennial with that lavender blooms. Again, lasts pretty long. Excellent for drawing in the pollinators. If you had to grow one perennial, this one might be it. It can just grow almost anywhere, tolerate any conditions, stays pretty compact, just an absolutely durable, hardy, wonderful little perennial for those mid-season blooms. Love the Walker's Low Catmint. You know, there's also other varieties available as well, not just this one. Next up, we've got the daylilies. Now, we could spend an entire day on this, no pun intended, but the Hemalis genus is massive. Look at that, 35,000 some registered varieties. Try to keep track of that, but there's just so many different blooms to enjoy. I think you got pretty much every color, multicolored with the deep throats, different stamen colors. This is just a rugged, adaptable, vigorous plant that, it's just one of the absolutely best mid-season bloomers out there. There's some compact varieties also, like Stella de Oro is probably one of the mainstream daylilies planted, intensely by landscapers because it's just such a solid performer. But the daylilies, I've even read that there's some evening daylily varieties now where they only open in the evening. Look at the flower on this one. Chinese globe flower, or just globe flower, it's also called. They're on a 2 to 3 foot height, but I just love this flower, that orangey. And look at those tall little stamens, I believe they are in the center. And this is a good mid-season bloomer, hardy. This is an excellent choice if you need something close to a wet area, next to a pond, a stream. I looked right behind it there. I want to just highlight that's that first flower we looked at, the pasque flowers. So you can see the pasque flowers finished up with those airy seed heads. And now we're into mid-season and we're getting to enjoy this Chinese globe flower. And here we've got sea holly. Now you don't see this perennial too often, in my opinion. It's got this really unique spiny flower, makes it great for florists and their cut flowers. But I call this just an absolute pollinator magnet. It brings in so many different insects. It's just awesome to watch. Got some footage here where you can see some of those different insects. I'm not an entomologist, but look at some of those. Just an absolutely great perennial to put into those sun-baked hot areas. Stays very compact. I've only seen it come up one other time, so self-seeding doesn't seem to be a problem, but just an absolutely beautiful mid-season bloomer. So unique with this little sea holly perennial. Here we're looking at the blazing star. This is the kobold original. This has got those upright purplish vertical stems. Now, one thing interesting about the kobold variety is not going to draw in the pollinators very well. It's just been bred out of the plant. So if you want those pollinators, go ahead and look and try to find some of the more native ones like rough blazing star, meadow blazing star, or the prairie. Here's a photo of one of them. It kind of fell over, gets a lot taller than that kobold variety, but this is going to draw in those butterflies and some of the other pollinators. So this is a great plant. You just got to be careful that some of the improved varieties on it aren't going to draw in the pollinators. There's also the white, which is another nice upright vertical stem on the blazing star. And here we've got the ornamental onion or the allium. This is a mid-season into the late. So we're starting to get into the late bloomers now. This is a nice perennial. Beautiful for bringing in the pollinators. The flower's long lasting. It's just such a perfect little compact plant with just hundreds of flowers on it. It'll do best in full sun, fertile soil, but it's going to tolerate some of the tougher soils, and it'll go okay in the part shade as well. There's some other varieties to pick from, but you're going to love planting an allium. It does have a little bit of an onion scent if you rub up next to it, or you're working with it in the fall when you're cutting it back. So the ornamental onions, you can't go wrong with this perennial. And the Russian sage. This is one of the late season bloomers for sure. You're going to need some space for this one. This can get up into that 3 to 4 foot, can be kind of aggressive, can spread out, not only with its root system, but by self-seeding itself. It's got a nice airy spike flower. This will also draw in quite a bit of the different pollinators. Bumblebees happen to love it. There are some compact varieties available like Blue Jean Baby, Denim Lace, but Russian sage is a wonderful plant for long blooms late into the season. Here we've got Joe Pieweed. Now, I had a friend, I was trying to tell him, man, you got to plant this perennial. It's awesome. It's a wonderful late blooming perennial. But he said, I can't do that. I don't like the name, but he likes it now. And it is a great perennial. It's got the lavender pink flowers. Hardly in the zone 3 to 8. It'll bring in the butterflies. It can get some size. I mean, we're upwards of 4 to 6 feet. It almost looks like a shrub by the end of the season. And this one's one that's going to emerge late. It needs that warmer soil before it peaks out of the ground. But you'll love Joe Pieweed if you've got the space. Here we're looking at autumn Joy Seeda, more stone crop. Now this is one of the better compact variety of fall blooming perennials. Now there's so many varieties to pick from. The leaf colors, the flower colors, the sizes. There's also different sprawling or trailing. We're mostly looking at upright varieties here, but look at all the different variations. Small flowers, large flowers, different leaf colors. So I just absolutely love these two for the honeybees that they draw in the fall. They will kind of freeze off a little bit early. They won't tolerate those early frosts. But if you need that compact fall blooming perennial, sedums are, man, they're just the only way to go. And now we're into the latest bloomers of them all that we've looked at today, the Aster Group. Now there's many different sizes, varieties you can pick from, anywhere from 12 inches up to 4 feet. They mostly are in that violet to blue type color range, but this is one of the last ones to bloom, so it really provides a lot of nectar and pollen for those late honeybees. Just a wonderful perennial for the fall season. All right, so there you go. We've looked at quite a few different perennials, and something that we should keep in mind when you're planting your perennials, if you've got different microclimates in your yard, it's going to vary when your plant's going to bloom. An early spring or a late spring can affect it. Whether or not you have it in mulch or rock, plant it on the south side of a building. Now, you know, that can heat up quickly with concrete, brick, or even just walls. So that all factors in when your plant is going to bloom each season. But this will give you kind of a rough outline on what to look for when you're out there shopping for your plants, and if you want to have that bloom all season long. If you're interested in a couple more minutes of looking at some different perennials, I've got a video right here you can take a look at, just with some soothing music. Thanks for watching Garden Hike. I appreciate it. We'll see you again next video.